In the small, forgotten village of Osso, there lived a young girl named Amara. From the moment she could walk, Amara was treated as little more than a servant by her step-parents. Day after day, her hands were raw from washing clothes, her back ached from carrying heavy baskets, and her heart was broken from the cruel words they spat at her. But no one in the village knew the depth of her suffering. She kept it all hidden behind a quiet smile. But Amara wasn't just a normal girl. Unknown to her step-parents, there was something special about her. A connection to the spirits that lurked in the forest outside the village. When she was just a child, her real mother had taken her to the shrine deep in the woods and whispered a secret before she died. The spirits will protect you when no one else will. Those words had echoed in Amara's mind for years, growing louder with each beating and every cruel insult. One evening, after yet another day of torment, Amara sat alone under the moonlight, her tears falling silently onto the hard ground. Her stepmother had beaten her for breaking a plate, and her stepfather had locked her in the cold, dark shed as punishment. Shivering, she clenched her fists and whispered into the night, "Mother, if the spirits are real, help me now." The wind began to stir, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. Amara looked up, her heart pounding. She felt something powerful and ancient, watching her. From the shadows of the trees, a soft voice whispered back, "Come to the shrine, child. We have been waiting." The next morning, as her step-parents left the house to sell goods in the market, Amara quietly slipped into the forest. Her heart raced with both fear and hope as she made her way to the shrine her mother had spoken of. The path was dark, twisted by thick vines and low-hanging branches, but Amara pressed on, driven by the desperate desire to escape her miserable life. When she finally reached the shrine, the air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something ancient. The shrine itself was small, made of stone and covered in moss, but the presence around it was overwhelming. As she knelt before the shrine, the ground beneath her seemed to hum with energy. "Spirits of the forest," she whispered, "I ask for your help. I cannot endure their cruelty any longer." Suddenly the air grew cold and the wind howled through the trees. From the shrine, a figure began to form, shaped from mist and shadow. It was the spirit of the forest, and it spoke in a voice that sent chills down Amara's spine. "We have heard your cries, child. You seek justice. You seek revenge." Amara hesitated, the word revenge tasting bitter in her mouth. But the images of her step-parents, their sneering faces, their cruel hands filled her mind. "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I want revenge." The spirit's glowing eyes bore into her. "We will grant you the power to punish those who have wronged you. But beware, child, such power comes at a price." "I don't care," Amara said quickly. "I will pay any price to make them stop." With a wave of its ethereal hand, the spirit conjured a small, delicate vial filled with a shimmering liquid. "Give this to them," the spirit instructed, "in their food or drink. Once they consume it, they will be transformed into the animals they most resemble in spirit. Their fate will be in your hands." Amara took the vial, her hands trembling. "What will happen to them?" The spirit's voice turned dark. "That is for you to decide. They will be trapped in their new forms until you choose to free them. If you ever do." That night, Amara returned home with the vial hidden in her pocket. Her step-parents were already drunk from the cheap wine they had been selling at the market. Her stepmother sneered at her. "Look who's finally back. Useless as always," she slurred, throwing a half-empty cup at her. Amara's heart pounded in her chest, but she said nothing. Instead, she quietly poured the shimmering liquid into their wine when they weren't looking. Her hands shook as she watched them drink, unaware of the fate that awaited them. Within moments, the change began. Her stepmother was the first to feel it. She clutched her throat, gasping for air as her body began to convulse. What's happening?" she shrieked, her voice turning guttural and hoarse. Her skin rippled and darkened, fur sprouting from her arms as her face elongated into a twisted, snarling snout. Before Amara's wide eyes, her stepmother's body twisted and shrank, transforming into a wild boar, ugly, brutish, and fitting for the cruel woman she had been. Her stepfather stumbled, trying to stand, but his legs gave way beneath him. His body convulsed, and within seconds his skin grew rough, his arms shriveling as his body lengthened and thickened. His eyes bulged, and his mouth stretched into a wide, toothless gape. In mere moments he had turned into a snake, cold, slimy, and treacherous, just as he had always been. Amara stood frozen, watching the two creatures writhe and squeal before her. Her heart raced with both terror and satisfaction. "This is what you deserve," she whispered, her voice barely audible over their pitiful cries. 4 days Amara kept them locked in the shed. She would visit them, watching as the boar and the snake crawled and slithered helplessly. They looked at her with pleading eyes, but Amara felt no pity. The pain they had caused her all those years had hardened her heart. She fed them scraps just as they had treated her, and in those moments she felt powerful. For the first time in her life she was in control. But as the days passed, a gnawing feeling began to creep into her chest. She had gotten her revenge, so why did she still feel empty? Why did she still cry herself to sleep at night? One evening, as Amara sat alone in the dark, the spirit appeared to her again. "You have done what you asked for," it said, "but are you satisfied?" Amara hesitated, the weight of her choices pressing down on her. "I thought I would be," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But it feels wrong." The spirit's glowing eyes softened. "Revenge is a heavy burden, child. It can destroy more than those it's aimed at." Tears filled Amara's eyes. "I don't know what to do. You have the power to end their suffering, to release them from their animal forms," the spirit said gently. "But that choice is yours alone." Amara stood, her heart pounding. She made her way to the shed where the boar and the snake lay, weak and miserable. She looked down at them, the creatures that had once been her tormentors. They had caused her so much pain, but now they were the ones suffering. The power to end it all was in her hands. With a deep breath, Amara whispered the words the spirit had taught her, and in a flash her step-parents were human again, lying on the floor, weak and trembling. They looked up at her, eyes wide with fear and shame. "Amara, please," her stepmother whimpered, her voice barely audible. "Forgive us." Amara stared at them for a long moment, her heart torn between hatred and pity. Finally she turned away. "I've already paid the price for revenge," she said quietly. "Now you will live with the consequences." And with that she left the house, leaving her step-parents to face the lives they had shaped with their cruelty. As Amara walked away, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint voice of the spirit. "Justice has been served, but remember, child, forgiveness is a power all its own." Amara didn't look back.